Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to do a call to order here. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission's regular meeting agenda for Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 at 7:30. This is an online remote meeting, and we're going to open up with the Pledge of Allegiance. So everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, we'll start with a roll call, and I'm going to start from when we're normally seated together. I'm going to start from Mary's side. So, Mary, if you could kick it off.
Okay, Mary Lopresti.
Joshua Dykstra.
Pizza Brass.
John Kerwin.
Jesse Schremer.
Thank you, Jess.
Brett Olbreeze.
Dan Walls here.
Pat Cotarella.
And Dave Sauter. Jess? Jessica?
She's muted.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Keith Rosenfeld.
And did Steve McCary jump on yet?
I'm sorry.
I know he was trying.
I think I just heard Steve. Okay, so Steve is here. Okay. All right. So since we have full attendance, there's not going to be any seating of alternates today. So we're going to open up with the public hearing and the recessed public hearings. Z20-034, 312 Chestnut Tree Hill Road. The owner, estate of Serge Mahaly Sr. Applicant is Matthew Mahaly at 111 Booth Hill Road, Trumbull, Connecticut. And this is a hearing that was recessed from Tuesday, July 7th, pending responses back from the applicant and their personnel from Jim Galligan regarding a number of open-ended questions, which we're still gathering. So but we did in the interim we did receive some correspondence that needs to get received in. So Pat, would you be able to take care of that?
Yes, I believe I just have one new item.
Thank you.
It's from Dorothy A. DeBishop, Oxford Municipal Historian, to the Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission. Dear Commission members, as Oxford Municipal Historian, I would like to encourage the preservation of the house and barns at 312 Chestnut Tree Hill Road. Of course, this is private property and the owner has vested rights to the land and can insist on any plan which complies with state and local regulations. I encourage the Commission to work with the property owner to provide the best opportunity for the house and barn to remain intact on a single lot. Attached is a fact sheet for the house and the barn. The house information is from the book Historic Buildings of Oxford Past and Present, published by the Oxford Historical Society in 2017. The barn was also included in the website of Historic Connecticut Barns, developed by the Preservation Connecticut, with photos gathered by the Oxford Historical Society. I would advise any owner or potential purchaser of Oxford's delay of demolition ordinance. This local ordinance will prohibit any immediate demolition of these historic structures. During the 90-day delay period, advocates for the preservation of the site will have the opportunity to encourage the owners to seek alternative plans that would preserve the historic structures. Failing that, we would request the opportunity to fully document the structures before this important part of our community heritage is lost. We hope that is not necessary. Any measure within your legal authority to encourage the preservation of these structures will help preserve the rural agricultural heritage of our town, so valued by our residents, and it's signed by Dorothy A. DeBishop, Oxford Municipal Historian.
Thank you, Pat. So, aside from this correspondence that was just read in, the fact that we don't have any other responses to kind of go through, I think the best interest would be to go ahead and recess this to our next meeting, at which point hopefully the applicant and their help will be able to answer some of the things that came from Jim Gallion. So with that being in mind, could I have a motion to recess this public hearing until July 21st, 2020?
So moved. John Kerwin.
Second, Pat Coachella.
Motion by John, second by Pat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on, new public hearings, none. And future public hearings, none. Looking at regular meeting business, amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I do have one. I think I emailed it to you, Dave. I don't know if you got it in time. It's a use permit for 144 Oxford Road, Tommy Case Plaza over there.
I did not get it, actually. I apologize. I did not see that.
No, that's okay. It was kind of a last minute thing. So it's up to the commission if they
Was it
want to.
communicated for the rest of the commission see it at all?
I didn't see it.
No, it's not in the packet or anything.
Yeah, I don't think I
Was
said
it a time-sensitive, critical type of nature, or was it a use permit, or was it?
No, it's just a use permit. It was supposed to be on tonight's agenda, and I found it after the agenda was already filed behind all the other applications. So, but I think that Steve had mentioned that it was okay to hold off until the next meeting.
Assuming that anybody else on the commission has any strong feelings regarding this, I would say until we have a chance for everybody to get a copy and review it, I would assume to just move this to, not amend this week's meeting's agenda and add it to the meeting on the 21st.
That's fine.
Any discussion on that? Okay. Yeah, so we'll do that.
Okay.
And were there any other amendments to the agenda that we needed to consider?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the audience of citizens. Is there anybody in the audience of citizens that has joined the call that wants to discuss any items that are not listed on the agenda? For the audience of citizens, is there anybody in the audience that would like to mention or discuss any items that are not listed on the agenda? And one last time, audience of citizens, is there anything not listed on the agenda that anybody would like to talk about? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. First, we have a few pieces of correspondence to get read in. The first one is a letter dated June 16th from Attorney Dominic Thomas regarding a special exception permit, modification of construction sequencing. Pat, did you want to take care of reading that one in, or?
Pat, you need a break?
Yeah, you can pass it around a little bit too.
Spread the
John, you want
wealth.
to take it?
Yeah, sure. That's page.
Hi, John,
20
thank you.
That's page 23, right?
Yeah, page 23, exactly.
Letter addressed from Cohen and Thomas, attorneys at law, dated June 16th, 2020. Addressed to Chairman David T. Sauter, Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission, with appropriate address regarding Z18-302 special exception permit request for modification of construction sequencing. Dear Chairman Sauter, please be advised that the undersigned represents McNamee Construction Corporation that was approved for the above captioned special exception permit on May 21st, 2019. The permit is recorded in the Oxford Land Records in volume 436 at page 947. While the special exception permit attached hereto does not contain a specific condition concerning construction sequencing, the plan entitled Soil and Erosion Control and Phase Plan contains a section F, Construction Sequence Phases. The initial requirement in phase 1 is construction, quotation, construction can start after the bridge and delivery are installed and driveway in disturbance is stabilized, close quote. This note is based on the permit approval by the Conservation Commission, Inland Wetlands Commission. Parenthetically, see notes attached here too. The applicant, McNamee Construction Corporation, requests that the Planning and Zoning Commission modify of the construction sequence in the approved plans as follows. Construction can start in a building permit issued for building 1, which construction shall occur simultaneous with the construction of the bridge and access driveway. The certificate of occupancy for building 1 cannot be issued, and phase 2 of the construction sequence cannot commence until the bridge and access driveway are installed and the existing temporary access road closed and stabilized per the inland wetlands permit. I was unable to determine a fee for this type of application. Once advised, I will remit the fee to the agency. Respectfully submitted, McNamee Construction Corporation, signed by its attorney, Dominic J. Thomas, Jr.
Mr. Chairman, this
Thank
is
you, John.
Attorney Thomas. Can I address the letter?
Yes, briefly.
Yeah, very briefly. I would suggest that you move this to your next meeting. We are addressing the matter with the Wetlands Commission. They have requested certain documentation, which we are providing them, and we will be addressing them at their next meeting, which is next Tuesday. So it's really the reason I addressed it to both commissions is because, as is typical, both commissions incorporate the plans into their approval. So since it was on the plans, I had to address it to both. But we're in the process of addressing it with wetlands since it was mainly their condition. So it might be better to move this to your next meeting.
I was actually thinking about that, seeing as we need to probably do a little bit of homework on it, attorney. So I appreciate that, and I think that's something we will carry forward and we can add to the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
you.
I move the table to the next regular scheduled meeting.
Second.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Then we have, next up from a correspondence perspective, we have the bond release request for Haynes Construction Company, Meadowbrook Estates. Jess, there's a note here. We're going to refer this to Jim Galligan.
You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's so, I don't hear my dogs, but you know what? I'm not going to mute for now.
That's
So
fine.
yes, refer to Jim.
Okay, do we need a motion to announce that we're, or actually, let's read this in first. So, Pat, do you want to take care of it, or you want me to? Pat, you're muted.
You're muted, Pat.
We can see your lips moving.
I'll read it in if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
Got it.
All right, second, this letter is page 25 for the record, from Travelers, titled Second Request, March 10th, 2020, Town of Oxford, SB Church Memorial Hall, our address regarding bond number 400KF6036, Principal Haynes Construction Company, address 30 Progress Avenue, Seymour, Connecticut, bond amount $300,000, project Meadowbrook Estates, Great Cedar Hill Road, Seymour, Connecticut. To whom it may concern, on March 3rd, 2003, we executed a subdivision bond for the above captioned, and we are inquiring about the status to see if bond can be released at this time. If the bond can be released, we would appreciate it if you would return the bond to us so we can go ahead and process the proper cancellation. Thank you. Very truly yours, Rosa Reyes, Bond Department.
All right, thank you, John. So Jessica, I see the note to refer this over to Jim Galligan.
Yeah, I think reading this now, since we got it in March, I think the reason why we didn't see this was because Meadowbrook Estates is, our project is not Great Cedar Hill Road, Seymour. So I'm going to double check that And if it is correct, I'll refer it to the town engineer. And if not, then I'll let them know that they sent this letter to the wrong town.
It would have been Seymour, right?
It's Seymour, exactly.
Right, it
Right.
would have been, it should be Meadowbrook Estates, Meadowbrook Road,
Oxford.
Oxford, Connecticut.
Wasn't part of
Because
that,
half-
didn't they have part of their project in Seymour as well?
Yeah, but we wouldn't have bonded the portion in Seymour.
Yeah,
Right.
Seymour, they would have bonded it in Seymour, so.
Yeah, so now I know why I was sitting on this. I'm looking at it going, what? And then I realized. So let me double check on that. I'm gonna make a note.
So do we need a motion that you're going to be doing research on this or tabling this, or?
You know,
Yeah, I
Dave,
mean-
what we could do, while she's doing the research, if it's appropriate, it can go to Jim Galligan. If not, we would just refer it to whoever, to Seymour. Or how's that? Is that a good solution, Jess?
Yeah, as soon as I find out,
Save a step?
yeah.
Okay. So John, you saying we need to make a motion for that, or we can let it go
Yeah,
to?
why don't we make a motion to
It's
refer it to
official.
Jim Galligan with Jessica's recommendation if appropriate. If it's not an Oxford bond, then obviously we just send him a nice letter saying we don't have your money.
Makes sense. Okay, so we have a motion from John to move this to with Jessica, and do we have a second?
Second.
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 All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And the final piece of correspondence is somewhat similar. It's a bond release request. This is for Oxford Supply LLC for a subdivision's performance bond. Brett, would you like to have the pleasure of reading one?
Sure. From Travelers again, dated June 17th, 2020, Town of Oxford, Office of the First Selectman, 486 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, 06478. Bond number 104953452, Principal Oxford Supply LLC. Address 70 Platt Road, Shelton, 06484. The bond amount $950,000 for a subdivision/performance bond to whom it may concern. We have been informed that the above mentioned subdivision performance bond is no longer required for renewal. Therefore, we are asking for the release of the bond. Please forward a release of bond to my attention at the address above or via email with rreyes@travelers.com so I can process the cancellation on this bond. Should you need any further information, please contact me at 860-277-8557. Yours very truly yours, Rosa Reyes, Bond Department.
Thank you, Brett. So Jessica, would this be the same process, refer to Jim Galligan?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion to refer this to Jim Galligan for review?
So moved.
Moved by Patrick, second
Second.
Second,
by Peter.
Second, Pete.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Takes care of the correspondence. Moving on to old business matters on which a public meeting was held. D20-010, 403-407-411 Roosevelt Drive, the New Haven Rowing Club. Owner, New Haven Rowing Club Incorporated, the applicant, Stewart Lathers Associates, LLC. This is special exception, Article 5, Section 5.3.1, non-commercial recreational use. And the public hearing for this was closed on June 16th. So I know we've had a number of conversations regarding this over the past few meetings, and and we've talked about this from a number of different perspectives. So I'm really happy that we can actually start, looking into this from a deliberations perspective and start looking, we talked a lot about the water, but I really focused also, primarily on the application itself. There's some questions about property lines, as well as a request for a fee waiver, which I think we kind of have to dig into a little bit. So with that being said, and all the information that we have, I'll open it up and we can kind of start going through in terms of people having feedback and discussions and thoughts.
Well, I'll jump in if no one wants to start.
Okay, John, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't think it's a surprise, not in favor of this application. We did have a lot of discussions regarding the nature of the neighborhood and the effect that this would have, which is important to consider when we consider this. This is a special exception in a residential area. But if you look at the way the regs are structured, they ask that the calculus for a special exception that's spelled out in Article 10 be followed when you apply that application for the special exception in the residential zone. So I think the way our Oxford regulations are written, anytime that there's a special exception, whatever section of the zone or whatever zone that the property is in, you look for guidance in granting that application to Article 10. And Article 10 gives you all the criteria that you would run through in determining whether it's an appropriate application or not, or whether the commission is in favor of it or not. So the discussions, the reason why I bring this up, the discussions that we had about the amount of usage for that particular neighborhood with respect to the water rights and with respect to the recreational activities that particular neighborhood enjoys by virtue of being so close to the river. I think it's appropriate that we consider the concerns of the other neighbors. I was very concerned by the applicants when we asked them, when we tried to get them to give us a straight answer about what effect this would have on the other people, the other residents in the neighborhood that enjoy that waterfront property. They could never give us a clear answer. They were always ambivalent, and that to me caused some concerns. I was, I'm sympathetic for the other neighbors. I do like the application, the layout, the architecture, but my concern is under Article 10, Section 10.3.4, we have to consider the detrimental impact on the adjoining property and neighborhood. Obviously, the concerns of the other residents that want to enjoy that waterfront community, I think are well founded. That if they increase this use, obviously, it's been what they were saying, they being the applicant, that this is just they're expanding their storage capacity. If you look at the application, if you look at the size of the building, they're obviously going to be expanding the use because they're expanding the footprint of the entire application. They're generating a lot more space, which then allows for a lot more use of this non-commercial application and the waterfront use. So it's going to have an impact on the other boaters, the other residents in the neighborhood, which will be detrimental because, it seems from both what the applicant said, where they can't use the water when the other motorboats are in the water. The motorboats can't use the river when these people are rowing. I think that you're going to run into situations where we're going to have conflicts on the water. It might, they talked about safety and a risk of collision. I think those are things that, whereas we can't regulate the water use, we can regulate the quality of the neighborhood and the impact of this use on the neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood. This is a non-commercial recreational use, which is going to impact those other residential uses. So that's one of the problems that I have with it. And I would have liked I would have been more supportive of this application if they were able to come forward and say, listen, we're going to ask our members not to row during the heavy times, the heavy usage time for motorboats, the peak times. Obviously, there aren't a lot of people water skiing at 8 o'clock in the morning when the rowers are out. But they seem disinclined to want to give us any kind of specifics, which to me indicates that they're really going to be expanding their use, because they wouldn't. All they had to do was give us some assurances, and they couldn't do that. So that's my one problem under the special exception. My other problem with the application, and Dave or the chairman talked about this a little bit when he brought it up about the lot lines. I really don't think that we should be in the business of approving. This would be basically a variance. You've got two lots. If you look at the picture, the two buildings together that would be under separate ownership, and they're so tightly packed together, it almost seems like one building, but you would have potentially two lots where they would have the opportunity to sell one of the lots or leverage one of the lots with a mortgage, which who knows how the market could turn. The bank could take possession of one of these. Once those two properties split ownership, you're going to be in a situation. If you look at the pictures, I don't have the page numbers here.
Page 40. Page 40, John.
Yeah, I mean, these two buildings are, so close together. I don't think we should be approving them on separate lots. That was one of my concerns too. We had a number of discussions before when the application first came up before the COVID. Their excuse about not being, they want to be able to get, more. I don't see a bank wanting to do any kind of financing in a situation like this, where the properties are so closely tied together. It didn't make any sense to me from a legal perspective, a rational perspective, that they want to be able to just mortgage one of the buildings, when in fact the buildings are almost, they're so closely tied together that it's almost one building, one use. So that to me is another reason to deny the application, that we would be denying basically non-conforming lots. So those are my 2 points in denying it. With respect to the request to waive the fee, quite frankly, I was a little insulted when he called it a tax on, when one of the applicants called it, I think he said a tax on inspection. The only way it would be a tax on inspection is if we were taxing Steve, who would be inspecting this property to make sure it's in compliance with the plans. This is a very complicated building. If it is approved with the setback lines, with all the building requirements, with all the waterfront requirements, there's going to be a significant amount of work to be done just on planning and zoning, and from the town's perspective with respect to granting this application and making sure that, or granting a CO, making sure that the building is constructed correctly. I think it's a reasonable fee. I asked on a number of occasions that they submit some kind of indication of, their financial status. We got a copy of their tax exempt documents from the IRS, which basically states, it doesn't really indicate, their nonprofit activities. It just says that the reason why they have this is so that donors can deduct contributions they make to you as provided by Internal Revenue Code Section 170. And you're also qualified to receive tax deductible bequests, legacies, devises, and transfers. So, their IRS status is to allow people to leave them bequests and grants, or give them contributions, and then to be able, so members can donate money to them.
John, if I could interject there for a second, just one moment. I apologize for cutting you off. I think from the financial perspective, I want to look at that purely from the Oxford Planning and Zoning. I don't mean to sound harsh or blunt, but I'm really not concerned about their tax deferred status or anything along those lines. I don't think that's relevant. I think it's basically, what are they applying for, and does it make sense for us from a town standpoint to waive that in only and just keep it at that particular level?
Well, I respect that, Dave, but I think it's important when somebody comes in and asks the town for us to waive. We're a nonprofit as well. to waive a fee, that they give us a good reason. And they're the ones that submitted this. So, they're asking us to look at it, and I'm looking at it. And
Yep.
the document is in the record, and that's why they have that that tax exempt status. They never gave us any kind of indication of what their financial status, how much money they, what type of assets they have that would indicate whether they're deserving or, they're in a position where we should give them this generous gift. And I don't think they've demonstrated that. So I don't think they've really qualified for any kind of waiver of a fee. It's not a tax. It's a legitimate and reasonable fee that the town charges to make sure that the building is built in accordance with the plans. And they haven't given us a reason to waive the fee other than they submitted a document that says that they're able to get tax deferrable donations from their members. So that's my point. I would ask the members of the commission not to waive the fee as well. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. So I'm going to kind of go around. So I want everybody to have a chance to kind of weigh in here because it's been a number of perspectives that have been asked. So if nobody wants to speak up now, I'm going to start calling on to give people a chance to say something. So first off, I'll open up to anybody. Does anybody want to be recognized right now?
Yeah, I'll be recognized, Dave.
Pete, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, my problem with this application is the lot lines, setbacks of the buildings and so forth. I'm really not in favor of building a building on two different lots and those lot lines, the setbacks and everything. That's why I have a problem with this application. As far as the waterway goes, I have nothing to say about that because we have nothing to say. They should if the residents have a problem with that, they should contact the Housatonic Water Authority or the Lakes Door Authority for that.
Thank you,
They
Pete.
feel the lake will be overran with boats. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the commission have something they want to jump in with?
This is Pat Cocherella.
Hi, Pat.
Okay, I agree with John on 2 points. One, our fees are not a tax, so it doesn't apply. And I do agree with the lot lines and the setback and what have you. I disagree with him, however, knowing the location of this building and the potential building and how it relates to the residential zone there and stuff, I don't see the building itself having any major impact on the neighborhood. As far as the water usage and stuff, we really cannot consider that. I don't believe in our decision. However, I do think that the setbacks and the fee schedule, I agree with John. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else on the commission like to weigh in on this?
Hey, David, it's Brett.
Hi, Brett. Go for it.
Yeah, I would agree with Pat, with Dave, and what Pete has said or John has said. I mean, where my concern comes in are the plot lines specifically. I don't think the water usage is something that is under our purview that we could consider, even though I understand the concerns of the residents. I looked at the property and it would be a nice upgrade to the facilities, and I would love to see it. But my concern is specifically around the closeness of the buildings and there being the two lots versus the one lot. And the fee schedule, like John said, again, with whatever others have said, I don't look at it as a tax. I think the fee schedule is something that I couldn't look past either.
Jesse, did you have any thoughts you wanted to weigh in with?
Yeah, I agree with the guys here. I agree with John and Pete, along with the lot lines as well. As far as like what Brett And Pat said, when it comes to the water, that's obviously nothing that we're capable of enforcing per se. I just, with these buildings being this close together and also knowing that area, I mean, you want to talk about residential area. I mean, that's a pretty big building that would be added right to the road there. My kind of concern would be, if we're housing this many more boats, is this going to draw this many more people? Meaning, are we going to need more parking spaces? And how is that going to affect the residents on that busy road as well? That's a concern that I immediately saw when we first saw the application come in. But like I said, as far as everything else goes, I agree with the guys as well.
Dave, I have a question.
Actually, I want to give a chance. I'm not sure if Dan or Josh or Mary.
Yeah, Dave, this is Dan. I just want to echo what Jesse just brought up. That was my one thought on this whole thing was the traffic. I didn't really hear much about that, and I just saw that as a concern, frankly, the additional traffic. That seemed to be more of a concern for me than anything.
Okay, thank you. When I'm looking at this and I'm trying to find out, if somebody wants to do something like this and there's a possibility of doing it, is there a path to approval? And I'm in agreement regarding the separate and distinct properties. I'm concerned about non-conforming. I'm concerned about setbacks. I'm concerned about a whole lot of things with that. And personally, I mean, if it was something that we could do, I think that one of the things that we would have to consider would be, in terms of merging properties. I don't think you can look at it as three distinct properties. I think you have to look at it as one property. And I understand the concerns they brought up about doing that, but frankly, I think we have to look at it from a town perspective, and we're giving you an avenue that if we could do it, this is the way that you would have to do it. So that's my thought process along those lines if we could do it. I agree with a number of the folks. I don't feel the river is as much of a purview, and I don't think there was as much as I think they could have been more clear with the answers. I don't think we're looking at a ton new activity. I didn't get that particular impression where, I think it would be impactful from a neighborhood perspective, though I totally respect, I can see where John is coming from that perspective. Regarding that fee waiver, like I alluded to earlier, I'm thinking about that purely from, and you can almost call it selfish from a town perspective. On one hand, I understand we absolutely should be compensated for the activities we put into approvals and inspections and things along those lines, no doubt. But at the same time, too, my understanding, talking to a number of folks, in town, is that we also aren't in a position where we can be making a profit off of those fees as well. So if we're looking at an open air building that's not going to have septic, heating, plumbing, or anything along those lines, you're not going to be having those inspections and fees associated with it. So I could definitely see the argument where 5,000 maybe over the top. However, that being said, I think if there's a means where we can track what is spent on part of the approval process and refund the difference, I would be open to that, because knowing if they come back to us, they want to put in septic, plumbing, heating, or anything along those lines later on, they're going to have to go through the inspection process and pay those fees anyway. So it's not like we're losing something on it. I think we're more along the lines of charging and docking and taking what we're doing right now, and then they would get the difference back on the back end. So that's the process I would be thinking about from the fee perspective. I'm not sure if we decide to go that route in terms of if we're able to merge properties. I think that's something that, if we came to a consensus about wanting to explore that possibility, I think we would definitely want to involve Peter Olson in that conversation, so that we're not overstepping our bounds. And if we do it, we're doing it the right way. So that would be another consideration. The traffic I hadn't really thought about, and I'm not sure the volume that's coming in is going to be as impactful. And the reason why I'm not putting as much weight into the traffic also is because that wasn't a concern that was really brought up that I heard from the residents during the public hearing. And I would have thought if they were concerned about traffic on the roads, that would have been that would have definitely been a topic of discussion. I think more along the concerns was, they wanted to make sure that, from a river usage, that they weren't getting overwhelmed. And I'm not exactly sure how that would happen if we have that particular purview. So those are my my instincts and my gut thoughts off the top. And again, we've all heard from everybody now. If we want to go around again and talk to any of those questions or things like that, we can continue this process of talking. Anybody want to?
Mr. Chairman, Ocherella here.
Pat, you recognize.
Just as a point, when you were talking about the fees, what we levy are land use fees. Some of the things you mentioned are building fees, which are levied by the building department. We really have nothing to do with those fees as far as electrical, plumbing, etc. Ours are land use fees.
Okay,
that's all.
Okay, nope, thank you.
If we want to go around again, I
Go ahead,
just
Don.
wanted to agree with Brett. I do like the architecture. I think in the addition, if echoing on Chairman Sauter's comments, if we can, send this back or resolve the issues that I think the commission has, with respect to the lot lines and the non-conforming nature of the building with respect to the setbacks between the two. It is a nice addition to the neighborhood, and I think it would be a lot nicer than what they have there. Clearly an expansion in their use. And with respect to the fees, do we want to, if we're going to do it for this person, is it fair to do it for this individual applicant and not for anyone else and all the other fees that we've collected? I don't believe it's a tax. I believe it's an appropriate fee. And they haven't given us any reason, and I don't think there's an appropriate reason in this instance to waive the fee. So I agree with Pat on that in that regard. But I do like Chairman Sauter's idea of, maybe discussing this with an eye to what we would be looking for in the future, should the concerns that I think we're raising actually cause this application not to go forward. So my main concern, I've stated, obviously there's a disagreement on that, but with respect to the impact on the neighborhood, but clearly I think there's a problem with the two buildings being so close together, and that we approve non-conforming buildings, non-conforming setbacks for these two buildings while they remain under separate deeds. So I think that alone is grounds to deny the application. Again, I'd just like to echo that point. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Dave, that question. Pizza Brass.
Go ahead, Pete, you're recognized.
Yeah, on the boat situation, are they additional boats? Are these boats that are stored outside now and going to be put inside? I don't know if we ever got a clear answer on that. If it was going to be additional boats.
My understanding from the application was that, and they did mention that in the last public hearing, that they were looking simply to move the boats that were currently stored outside would be going inside, and as part of this reason for the size of the building was the size of the boats. So that was that was the premise and the rationale behind it. There was nothing in their statement of use that talked about the fact that they needed additional space for new boats that were coming in, which were the boats that were currently on site.
Okay.
Dave, I tend to, and Pete, in answering the question, I had a different take on it. If you look at the picture that they submitted, and there's like 6 boats that they store outside. They don't need this size of the building for 6 boats, and they did talk about, well, we would like to see more people join. We've had new members. So
not to cut you off, John,
option.
it's page 43, John. If everybody wants to look at that, you could see what John's talking about there.
The rendering?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Sorry, John.
that's no problem. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So there's going to be a lot of capacity there to expand their membership. So that's just something for us to consider. And, you know, how that impacts the neighborhood as well, I think is something that we consider with the special exception, even if you don't look at the waterway, but, you know, those are.
Well, that's part I was trying to get to, was if there's gonna be additional boats there or not. Because they didn't actually tell us. They were more interested about storing the stuff inside.
And I want to be fair to this rendering. It looks like where the building is situated on this rendering. I think it's covering area where boats are currently being stored outside. So it's not like there's nothing there right now. I believe boats are currently there, and the building is going to go partially on where the boats currently are. Again, my impressions and my interpretations from their responses.
Okay, I'm set. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Pete.
John.
Anybody else have anything they want to add on? So I'm really, from a personal perspective, my instincts, I'd like to explore this more. If the commission is agreeable to allowing this to look into a little bit more, and talking to Mr. Olson to kind of get a feel in terms of what are some of the steps that we can take, what are some of the directions we're thinking about, if it makes sense, to go ahead and do that. I think the fee question we would have to resolve here internally, and we can address that within our own group. But if there is an avenue for this, does it make sense to rather than making a decision on the fly right now, if we have resources here that can give us a little bit more insight, or may have an additional idea about something we can consider, does it make sense to open up that as an idea? What is everybody's thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Did I say something, Dave?
What was that? I'm sorry, it was all at once.
Go ahead, Pete.
All right, it seems like most of the commissioners here have a problem with the setbacks and the lines and the site plan and all. So why don't we just kick it back to them and tell them that, we're not going to authorize it this way. They have to come up with a different plan instead of keep dragging this out. I mean, it's up to you what you want to do about it, but.
Pete, you have the ability to make the motion.
I mean, I just don't want to push this guy into something that he'll regret later on. So
I think giving them options by taking advantage of the fact that we have, we can look and see if there's an option that we can do and say, hey, this, rather than going back and forth with it, because I know we also, it's been going back and forth, on our schedules. Why not come back and say, if there is a way to do it, here's the way it would have to be, and then that would basically end the conversation, take it or leave it.
Well, Dave, I think the most appropriate thing, that we would probably do that anyway if we denied the application. I think, as I understood your comment, you were requesting time to let us, kind of internalize these deliberations and decide. I don't know, just from what I heard, I think we could vote now if someone wants to make the motion. I know Pete had brought it up. And obviously then we could go back and explore, how to move forward after that. I doubt they're just going to, I think there would probably be a second step to the application, but we don't have to address the fee if the application is denied. We only have to address it if it's approved. So.
Wouldn't it make sense if we did it, if we could come back and say as a condition of approval, here's how it could be approved, and rather than doing a denial and having to go back and go through second steps? I'm looking for efficiencies too, so.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that. We're going to deny your application and tell you, that's what these deliberations were for, and I think we've given them a good indication. We don't have to come back with with a wish list for what we'd like to see in a new application. Obviously, we voiced that, and they can have more input with us at a later point. But and I don't, just off the top of my head, I don't know if that's appropriate or not. If we can deny it with.
I'm not suggesting deny it. I'm suggesting table it and learn a little bit more. Look at a little more in 2 weeks.
Hey, this is Brett, Dave.
You're recognized, Brett.
So, I sort of agree with John here where, it's just my opinion, but if we were to continue to always continue things until something met our approval, then what's the point of a denial? We have to deny things at some point. So I think, just my perspective is we should take a vote on this. And if it's denied and the applicant wants to reapply with enhanced plans that may meet some of our concerns, and at that point, if we feel comfortable with it, if and when that comes and we end up approving it, then that's the path forward. But you have to draw a line in the sand at some point. You can't just keep pushing that line further and further down the line, because then nothing will ever be denied and you'll always be continuing everything.
I agree with Brett.
Dave, can I just say something as a staff here?
Yes.
Usually we would, yes, can I?
Yes, you may.
Usually at this point, we have 65 days to deliberate. I understand not wanting to push it off, but usually at this point, we would have drafted a denial setting out the points. And I would caution the commission to not just say, we make a motion to deny this application, as opposed to having, a substantial resolution prepared moving forward in case they decide to litigate this.
I agree with that, Jesse there.
That's a good point, Jess.
Yeah, why don't we table it for 2 weeks and
Make a resolution.
draft a motion of denial and we can get more input. So that is a good point.
Dave, this is
We do need to.
Dave. This is
put the
Dan Wall.
record on.
Go on, Dan, you're recognized.
I'd like to make a motion to table this application to the next meeting.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second by Brett.
Second by Brett. All those in favor of tabling this motion until the July 21st meeting, it's by saying aye.
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 A point of order, is it table the motion or? There's no motion for approval or denial. We're recessing the hearing, right, Jess?
Yeah, Dan, can you clarify that? That was a motion to just table until the July 21st meeting?
That is correct.
Yeah, there's no motion for approval or denial. We're just gonna keep the deliberations open until the next meeting.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
All those in favor of tabling the motion until the July 21st meeting without taking any action of approving or denying it this time?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So we will table this until July 21st. Thank you, everybody. I know this is a topic everybody has some passion about, and I appreciate the dialogue on this. Okay, moving on. Old business, other matters. Next on the agenda is 2123 Nichols Road, TPP Contractors LLC and TNC Partners LLC. This was an application for a site plan and special exception. Consideration of a proposed settlement of appeal pursuant to Practice Book Section 14-7B-J. TPP Contractors LLC versus Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, docket number AAN CV 186029419S. Did Peter Olson join the call yet?
I'm here. My microphone is on. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Peter. Thank you very much. So,
I can't see myself.
at our last meeting, there was an open-ended question that came out of the conversations we were having regarding this proposed settlement that came up, between conversations that came up with us and Attorney Thomas and Attorney Koulas. So Peter was doing some digging and some research and putting together some information for us. So I'm going to turn this over to Peter to kind of go through.
Thanks, Dave. At your last meeting, we held, I won't call it a hearing, but something akin to a hearing. The practice book requires that you consider a settlement on a regular meeting agenda. We provided that notice. The commission considered it. We heard comments from members of the public and interested parties. And the commission essentially concluded that process and began to deliberate on the proposed settlement. During that deliberation, one of the commission members, Mr. Kerwin, asked that I prepare a memorandum that detailed the proposed settlement in relation to the revised amendment on Structures Yard that you adopted after this application was filed, but in the recent past. So I prepared that memorandum and it was circulated to you. The attachments to that included the regulations that you adopted, as well as the actual application submitted by the owner at 2123 Nichols Road. It was a long memorandum. I'll give you the highlights. First is that section 14 of the regulations, Article 14, covers earth material and biological material processing. Does not apply to this application. The intent of that section is to cover essentially operations that are in conjunction with site plans that are building something else rather than a contractor's yard, which is separate from that as its own use, rock crushing being permitted as part of that. So my opinion was that section 14 is not applicable. The rest of the regulation added to the contractor yard definition the permission to do stone crushing, rock crushing as part of operation. It's called earth and material processing, just as part of a contractor yard. So there's no separate permit required. There are a number of performance standards and details that go along with that. I've gone through them point by point. Most of the issues that I had relate to the storage of material bins. And my recommendation was that some additional information be added to the site plan to demonstrate compliance with those sections. It's simply, they have to be 3 feet high. There has to be some screening. An engineer needs to say there's not going to be an effect on drainage. The only major issue that I saw in preparing this compliance memo was that the proposed building is only 600 odd square feet, and your regulation requires a larger building, about 11,000 square feet. This is the one area where the proposal does not comply with the strict area of the regulations, although I do note there is an existing 6,000 square foot building on the site. You'll remember what I said at the last meeting was that because the application was filed before the new regulations came into place, they don't have to comply with that. The intent of the proposed settlement was to get as close as they could to compliance. And so I looked at, I sat through those hearings and what was the commission concerned about. The two issues that I recall were if the operation is done inside a building like Guerrera was, then the dust and the noise and the smoke and all the pollution associated with the operation is vastly reduced. And so that's one reason why the commission wants these operations in a building. And second, because contractor yards are essentially, in my opinion, kind of giant parking lots for equipment, the town does not get any benefit out of approving a contractor yard in terms of tax revenue because there's no buildings being built in many instances. They're just piling this stuff up and parking cars there. So the requirement of a building is, listen, if you want to do a contractor yard, it's got to be real. There's got to be real use there that's associated with it. And so I think both of those are met by the proposal. Because they are not required to comply with the proposal, the new regulations, I think the commission can look at it and go, listen, they comply with every aspect of it except the building. They applied it early, and so we're just going to hand wave that. We think the proposed settlement is an appropriate resolution of the litigation. So I took the liberty of drafting a proposed motion for the commission that included those 4 points that I thought should be added to the site plan. If the commission is amenable to that and it passes that to direct me to implement, then I will make sure that that site plan is submitted to the commission, and that's what we'll give to the court when we make that motion to settle the case. So turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. So, so for the commission, hearing that summary from Peter and while he's here as well too. John, first off, that satisfies the question that you had brought up?
I believe it does. I just have one question now. We've satisfied the obligation of having a hearing under the practice book with the last meeting, right? And this,
Yeah, so the practice book requires that we consider a proposed settlement at a regular meeting of the commission. It doesn't require a hearing. Big difference. There's no public hearing requirement. My advice to commissions, and this is what I said to you last week, is that you should hear from members of the public. That's just good common sense. And so it kind of felt like a public hearing, but it was not required to be an actual hearing. But yes, the actions we took at the last meeting are all that we needed to do to comply with the practice book. I should note that the court has to have a hearing on a proposed settlement as well. No idea when that will be, but.
Does anyone else on the commission have any questions they'd like to bring up?
No.
I don't.
Hearing
I
none,
noted a draft motion, and that's the last page of my memorandum, if anybody would like to review it. And make,
it's page 62.
page 62, and yeah, so we have a motion. If there's no other questions or concerns, and we've hashed out the open-ended stuff that came up with from a few weeks ago. We entertain a motion to based upon what Peter spelled out for us.
I would so move as contained on page 62, omitting the first paragraph. You want me to read it?
And we should probably read it into the record.
You want me to read it?
If you could, please. You made the motion, so I'm going to hold you to it. So.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, omitting the first paragraph, the commission hereby moves that the commission agree to settle the appeal from its decision on application Z18-183, 21-23 Nichols Road, which appeal is entitled TPB Contractors LLC versus Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, Judicial District of Ansonia Milford at Milford, docket number AAN-CV 18-6029419, tab S. The applicant shall submit a revised site plan incorporating the following revisions. 1, provide details for the open quotes material storage bin, close quote, and the open quote asphalt and concrete stockpile, close quotes. Next bullet, show existing vegetation, vegetative plantings or buildings in relation to the quote material storage bins, close quote, and the asphalt and concrete stockpile, close quote. And next bullet point, provide a statement from the civil engineer demonstrating compliance with section 10.7.2.5 subsection D, and last bullet, provide for an anti-tracking pad, excuse me. The applicant shall further submit a revised structure diagram containing the date of the revised site plan. Upon submission of the revised proposed settlement documents, council is directed to file and pursue such motions as are required to present the proposed settlement to the Superior Court as a motion for judgment by stipulation as required by General Statutes, Section 8-8, small n. The proposed settlement was considered by the Commission at a regular meeting of the Commission held pursuant to Practice Book, Section 14-7B.
Second.
I'll second
Second by
that.
Patrick. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
thanks everybody. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you for everything, Peter. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Okay. Moving forward, new business, schedule a public hearing, none. Section G, new business itself. We have a few applications to talk about here. The first one is going to be Z20-065, 315 Center Rock Green, Suite 3, owner Oxford Town Center, LLC. The applicant is TSW Landscape and Property Management, 3 Red Oak Lane, Seymour, Connecticut, and this is for a use permit. Is the applicant by any chance here that would like to, talk a little bit about what they're doing?
Mr. Chairman, Pecos, is this one of the storefronts, or is it office space, or do we know?
I'm looking at here. The statement of use does not really provide Rock Green Suite 3.
Chairman Sauter, Steve McCary.
Yes, Steve.
Yes. It's a small office. He's just going to run business out of it, filling, typing, fax machine, et cetera.
Did anybody hear that? I didn't.
No.
Did anyone-
No, we're all broken up.
I was broken up.
I heard it. He said that it's going to be a small office. He's going to be doing paperwork, faxing, stuff like that. That's all I heard.
I'm not sure what that
I don't know what
was.
that was.
Tarzan.
Yikes.
Dave Sauter, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, Steve.
Okay, so he's going to be doing billing, paperwork, fax machine. It's a one-guy operation. I don't have a layout of the floor plan yet, but the area he's going into is not even framed. It's framed. It's just not, the inside is not done. Hello?
Yep, we're here. We're listening. We're just looking here. Is there going to be
Okay.
a sign or anything?
So, and I haven't got, he's going to have one sign on the door, and that's it, which I have not gotten a picture of, but it's an interior office.
Steve, this is down
Where's
in
it at?
the Quarry Walk, right?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. So it's that professional building.
You guys should have a map. I emailed a map a while ago of each little individual office that I received from Kathy Edstrom. But I don't have this one marked on it. He's in a new building right behind where the future pizza place is going.
So
Do you know where
this is part
the underpass is?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
So it's in that,
It's
that new
right-
building that he built, that the last phase that he put up across from the sitting duck.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know, Dave. I'm good with it. It's
Yeah, I don't see anything that's jumping off. I
Yeah.
just wanted to give everybody else a chance. I was concerned about signage, but it's just going to be on an inside door. So, anybody else have any thoughts?
This is Pat. I'm good with it.
Okay. Well, then we would need a motion to approve, and there's a motion attached to on the last page of that section. Anybody want to make the motion?
what page is it, Dave?
Pat,
I'm
Pat
sorry,
has,
page
Pat has
101.
the motion.
101.
101A.
Sorry.
No,
101A.
I never got my hard copy, so I don't have it. Sorry.
All right, then I'm.
They're in your
going to have the motion.
mailbox. I have it here. You want me to read it?
I have it here as well too. I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Motion application Z20065 use permit, and it fit up address 315 Center Rock Green, Suite 3 Quarry Walk, Oxford Town Center LLC. Applicant Taylor Westland, 3 Red Oak Lane, Seymour, Connecticut, 06483, TSW Landscapes Design and Property Management. Motion by Dave Sauter to approve application Z20-065 with the following conditions. Applicant and their assigns must comply with all representations made at the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and/or public hearings regarding this application. Compliance with the statement of use dated June 22nd, 2020. The applicant shall obtain and comply with all the necessary permits and/or approvals and follow the Town of Oxford approved permit procedures. Compliance with the Oxford zoning regulations as of this date. Any proposed signs shall be subject to approval by the zoning enforcement officer and/or the commission in accordance with the standards and guidelines as interpreted by the commission. The applicant shall be responsible for rendering payment for any outside experts the commission assigned to review the application. The reason for approval is that it meets Oxford zoning regulations in effect as of this date. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it. John Kerwin.
Seconded by John, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so TSW is all set. Next up, we have Z-20-069268 Oxford Road. The owner and applicant is CT Propane, 21 Austin Drive, Marlborough, Connecticut. Use permit. And this this was an application where they are going to be they're asking to replace an 18,000 gallon propane tank to a 30,000 gallon propane tank as part of this. And Keith, when I was reading this, I'm going to throw this open to the commission. I'm just wondering, this it says it's for a use permit, but I'm thinking that this is more of a site plan modification.
That is correct.
Yeah, then with our review, we've determined that there is a site development plan that was approved through a settlement, and that shows a 18,000 gallon propane tank, and they're simply replacing it with a 30,000 gallon propane tank. Thus, it would need a site plan modification application.
It would.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Chairman Sauter, Steve McCary. I had wrote down on the folder I handed Jessica a use permit, but I think I checked off site plan. So they did give me a site plan. They drew in, what they wanted to do on the existing site plan. So they want to replace that tank and put it on the existing pad that's there.
Dave?
Yes, go ahead.
Pizza Brass?
Go, Pete.
Like I said to you before, I think this one here had a clause because they sued Oxford to have this established business put in place. I could have swore there was some kind of documentation stating that they couldn't enlarge that facility, even though it's a new owner. I mean, I'm trying to get the paperwork together for it. I haven't had time to go to do it, but
right.
We have to. I think we should table this until we find out the actual, what the documents, the court documents stated.
Pull the conditions of approval to go back and verify it for the commission's purposes, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Dave, I have just a question for the chairman, just to make sure. This is the site that's right next to the quarry walk now?
Yes.
That is correct. I believe it used to be Phoenix Propane and then it was sold.
Yeah,
Right.
It was approved. It was the actual quarry, but now that they've built this the residential and the mercantile area right next to it. Yeah, I agree with Pete. I think and you as well, Dave. I think we need to look at, what conditions were imposed, what came up with in the settlement. Unfortunately, this is not in an industrial zone. I know that when the owners came in the last time, they were very compliant. They followed the regulations the first time that they made their application. But I have Pete's same concern that would be some kind of limitation in the original agreement not to expand. It's not so much the footprint; it's the lethality of the. You're almost doubling the amount of propane stored in an area so close to a large parking lot as well as a large apartment building. So I think it behooves us to actually look at those conditions of approval, and also we might want to run it by the fire marshal.
I actually had a note for that. Right there with you.
Yeah, and maybe the town engineer. I don't know what type of regulations whether this slab that was built has a certain weight requirement that won't be able to handle the additional 14,000 or 16,000 gallons of propane. So I think there's a lot more to do at this point, and we need more information. So I would join with Commissioner Zabras in asking that we table it.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Cocheroa here.
Yes, Pat.
I tend to agree. I mean, the only reason that exists at that location is because the courts kind of forced us into it. I was on the commission at the time that came in, and we tried to deny that use at that location as it being an industrial use rather than a commercial use. I think to now expand that use is not a good idea. So I think that, tabling it until we find out more information is definitely the way to go with this.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Is this the applicant?
This is Bill Jumbley. Yes.
Yes. Hi. I was
Bill
actually
Jumbley.
you were on the call to be able to, let you make sure you understood where we were coming from with some of our questions. But yes, I absolutely want to give you a chance to say something. If you could just give your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
It's Bill Jumbley, 21 Austin Drive, Marlborough, Connecticut.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Bill. Go ahead.
The goal of replacing the existing tank with the larger tank is to cut down the frequency of deliveries. Rather than having 3 deliveries there a day, we'd only go to 1 delivery a day, because basically we got to run that tank out of gas every time we fill it. So the tank sits on a skid, which actually rests directly on the ground. There's no foundation for it. So it's sitting directly on earth. So the new tank would be the same exact way. So it would fit in the same footprint that was originally approved by the commission in the 15 by 50, which was on the site plan. So the difference in the tank is it's 2 feet fatter than what is there now. And I understand, I ran it by the fire marshal already. He said he had no concerns over it because we'd be breaking into 2020 standards in code rather than 2002 code, what it was put in at. So safety would be improved rather than decreased, even if it is a couple of gallons, if it is more gallons. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission. I understand, and it was my understanding when I originally purchased the property that it was originally approved for a 30,000 gallon, but because of constraints that the previous owner had financially, he couldn't afford a larger tank. So that's what I was going under that impression. That's why I brought it before the commission to even change the existing tank.
Mm-hmm. No, and I appreciate you bringing up those points. Thank you. One of the things in terms of when you with the property itself, I mean we're beholden to what the approvals were at that particular point in time. I'm not sure in terms of why they might have increased or not increased the size at a certain point. We have to go by what was actually approved as part of that settlement, and that's what we're going to go back and research, because obviously we want to make sure that we're following the letter and the accuracy in terms of what that has to be. But point noted, and also thank you for the comments regarding the upgrades to safety, because that's obviously important to everyone. Of course, we're going to go back and try and get something with the fire marshal too, because we want to make sure that from a documentation that we have something in writing that that confirms that with our research and homework that we're going to be doing as well. So, so just so you know the direction and the perspective that we're coming from, and the way that we have to do it. But I appreciate.
I totally understand it.
Yep. Very good. So what we're going to do, assuming we get a motion to table this, that's probably what's going to happen. But just to kind of give you a heads up with, that's the path that we're going.
Okay.
Does anybody on the commission have any other comments, or we could entertain a motion to table this till our next July 21st meeting?
So moved.
Motion from Pat to move to table to July 21st. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second, Dan Wall. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bill. Next up on our agenda is Z20-077, 300 Oxford Road, Building L, Unit 102, owner Oxford Town Center LLC. The applicant is Tina Xavier, the Coconut Beauty Salon, 106 Balance Rock Road, Seymour, Connecticut, and this is also for a use permit. I'm assuming that this will be a storefront in Quarry Walk. I'm not sure if the applicant is here or Steve has some insight.
Thank you, Dave. I don't know if she's there, but it's going to be a beauty salon, hair, nails, pedicures, et cetera, and I'm not sure where that building is she's going into, and she does have a sign which she emailed me next week, but it's going to conform to the other signs that are there.
So we have that factored in.
Statement of use says number of employees, et cetera.
Yep. Hair, nails, body waxing, spray tanning, massage. Seeing as the applicant's not here, does anybody have any comments or thoughts on this?
Is this the same building, Steve? It says Building L? Unit
Yeah,
102?
I'll do, Vice Chair, what I'll do next week is I'll get a complete layout and I'll write down which business is going in where, so we have that.
She's going to be a ground floor, though. She'll have a storefront, it sounds like.
Yep, she's underneath the, where they're working now, where the two buildings connect.
Yeah.
By the overpass.
All right.
Underpass.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mr. Chair, again, this is consistent with what they built that place for, what we approved it for, so I don't have a problem.
No, I agree.
True. Go for it.
All right. Pat can go out to his mailbox. I guess I have the motion again.
Making a motion to approve it.
I got it, Pat. All right, motion by Dave Sauter to approve application Z20-077 with the following conditions. It's for, I'm sorry, let me start at the top. Application Z20-077, use permit, 300 Oxford Road, Building L, Unit 102, Quarry Walk, Oxford Town Center. Kenia Xavier, 106 Balance Rock Road, Seymour, Connecticut, 06483 for the Coconut Beauty Studio. Motion by Dave Sauter to approve application Z20-077 with the following conditions. Applicant and their assigns must comply with all representations made at the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and/or public hearings regarding this application. Compliance with the statement of use dated July 1st, 2020. The applicant shall obtain and comply with all the necessary permits and/or approvals and follow the town of Oxford approved permit procedures. Compliance with the Oxford zoning regulations as of this date. Any proposed sign shall be subject to approval by the zoning enforcement officer and/or the commission in accordance with the standards and guidelines as interpreted by the commission. The applicant shall be responsible for rendering payment for any outside experts the commission assigns to review the application. The reason for the approval is that it meets Oxford zoning regulations in effect as of this date. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Second.
Second by Pat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. All right. Item number 4 under new business is Z20-078, 360 Center Rock Green Building N. Owner and applicant, Oxford Town Center LLC for the Sitting Duck. This is for temporary outdoor dining. When I saw this pop up, I asked Keith and Jess about this because I believe the temporary outdoor dining is basically being handled administratively under the COVID-19 regs. and is being fast tracked, they really aren't coming in front of the commission unless this was going to be something permanent that they were going to be doing, at which point they would have to apply during through our formal process. So unless Jess or Steve or anybody else has any insight that this is anything other than a temporary seating and temporary use, then I would say that we could probably remove this from the agenda and handle it administratively as per the COVID-19 regs that we have in place. Keith, am I reading that correctly?
No.
Yes, you are.
What?
All right.
Chairman Sartor, this is Steve. So they want to do some rooftop dining, which I know they can do, but they also want to add a canopy, which is a permanent structure, to the building over where they're dining now. So I just want to make sure that you guys know about that. So I'm not sure, that's why we have a little plan of what they want to do. And I just want to make sure you guys know about that. Proposed cover over existing patio. That's going to be a permanent structure. Can you hear me?
And second, when it was originally proposed and came up, we talked about it. It's not going to be temporary.
Looking at the
Yeah,
if you look at the plans, they're talking about a 30-inch high stone knee wall enclosure. So that sounds like this is a permanent structure, like a permanent use, as opposed to the executive order.
Yeah, that's the outdoor dining on the rooftop, which I want to say we approved that once before, but they're also proposing a proposed cover over the existing patio, which is where they dine now. That's going to be part of the building. There's going to be footings put in it. That's why you have the site plan there. It shows it right there.
Excuse me, I don't remember any dining. Approving any.
I can't hear you. What's that?
I don't
know if we did or not, but I know
any rooftop dining for the sitting duck. Because that's
we've got the original plan, and it shows it on the original plan.
I don't know.
That what you see there is the original plan.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Cotrella here.
Go ahead, Pat.
So what are we talking about? Are we talking about rooftop dining? Are we talking about a temporary outdoor patio at ground level? Or are we talking about a permanent outdoor dining at ground level? Which is it?
All three.
The application
Pat,
says patio roof cover existing patio. Doesn't say anything about. So just their application says it's a patio roof cover existing patio.
All right.
And then
I guess first question I'm going to ask is the applicant here on the call? Okay.
What they're doing, Mr. Chairman, is they have a patio on the rooftop, which has already been built, and then they're going to cover the existing patio, which is on the ground level.
So the application has nothing to do with the patio that's on the roof.
Sitting duck patio rooftop. I think that's already approved. You could ask the town planner on that, but I think that's approved through the government. The main thing here, I thought, was to cover the existing patio on the ground. That's a permanent structure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, correct.
I'm getting a little confused because it seems as though two topics keep coming up into the conversation. I'd like for there to be a clarification specifically only to talk about what is in front of us and not mention.
Well, you have two topics.
Hold up.
You have two topics right now,
please.
Hey, hold on 1 second. Brett has the floor.
So I would like to, if what I'm seeing in front of me looks to be only about covering the ground level patio. If it's two things, then shouldn't there be two use permits, not combined into one? So let's only focus on what is in the use permit in front of us and not combine the two. And if it's incorrect, they need to refile.
they
Brett,
need to,
my concern with it is I don't even see a, from a statement of use in terms of what was clearly what it's going to be.
I think
What's done.
under the regs, it's the applicant's obligation to submit a permit or an application that clarifies what they want. It's not our job to kind of discern that. So I agree with Brett. I think we should kick it back to them and say, we don't know what they're asking for. They should probably spell it out a little better. If it is 2 uses, then they need to submit 2 applications.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with John on that one.
Thank you, Pat.
I didn't hear that. What's that, Pat?
I agree with John on that one.
I approved this in office, and you guys ratified the decision. But it says blatantly here to me, it says sitting duck patio roof. So they're doing the patio on the roof because it's a rooftop dining, and then they're covering the existing patio on the ground, which is shown on the plan. So if you want me to have them submit another application, I can certainly do that. But I kind of thought it was a no-brainer. Because I approve this, he gets his signatures. I approve this, he gets his signatures, and we ratify the use, just like we did all the other ones.
Steve?
So however you guys...
All right. Steve, maybe this will make it a little bit easier for you. They're under the COVID-19 regs, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, you can jump in here. If they are making some sort of temporary use for their outdoor seating, and it complies with, and it's been inspected by fire and building and everything's good with that, it's administratively approved here within. If they are looking to make this permit after the expiration date of when this is, then they really should submit a more formal application. Probably what they're going to do. I think that we're in a position where we can say administratively, this is fine to do, but if they're going to have to clear it up if they want to keep it permanent because we have too many unanswered questions just based upon the paperwork that's in here. So I think they're good to go temporarily if building and fire agrees, with it, because that's beyond us. But permanently, then they need to come back with more clear instructions in terms of what the actual use is going to be and what it's going to cover. Keith?
Yes, if I may chime in.
Yes.
Steve can go, or you want me to?
I want Keith to go for it now.
Okay. The application that you have in front of you is a zoning permit application. It is not a temporary outdoor dining application. The temporary outdoor dining application is specifically made for temporary uses and has questions in it that will allow for both the applicant and the town to realize that these are just temporary measures to create dining which doesn't exist in places, or expand dining in other places, as long as it doesn't go beyond of the internal dining. So they're allowed to have 100 patrons inside the restaurant. They can only increase existing dining or make new dining for 50 patrons. So that's a little different. And the questions that are asked in this specific temporary dining COVID application are much different and really lead to that effect. So my recommendation would be to really, let's go back and look at this. Let's figure out what was approved in the beginning, what is actually been expanded. Let's work these numbers. Let's get the fire marshal involved at the beginning, because if he doesn't approve this, then and also the building official and also the health department. So those need to be secured before any zoning official signs off.
Yeah, this has to be corrected. Keith is correct. That came from an executive order. I think it was 777.
7MM.
That basically suspended the zoning regulations as it would apply to outdoor dining only for the period of time that the governor determines there's a health risk. And it requires the sign off, and there was a form that was required to be signed to be done, to be signed off administratively. This, I agree with, this appears to be a permanent structure. this should not have been approved administratively. It's not under the application, so we have to correct this.
So the
Mr.
fire department, fire marshal and building will not sign off until I do. They've already been in touch with Pomperac Health. We're just, this was just done last week. The reason why I approved this administratively because it's on the original plan. The only thing that's not is the proposed cover over existing patio. If you look on the plan, they says half the patio roof deck. It's blatant. It says right there, it shows a stairway going up in the table. So I'll call them and tell them to give us another application.
Mr. Chairman?
That stairway goes to a porch.
Did anybody hear?
Mr. Chairman?
Did anybody hear what I
Hold
said?
on. Yes,
Yes.
Steve, we heard you.
Thank you, because you guys are breaking up so bad. I don't know why.
Mr. Chairman?
Brett, go ahead.
Again, my concern still is, and maybe I'm overblowing it, but the zoning permit application shows two things. It says sitting duck patio roof / cover existing patio. Those are two distinct areas. They need to be separated. If the rooftop was already approved, then it shouldn't be on the application. But if they're looking to do something different, then it needs to be two applications.
And only they can make that application. We can't make it for them. They have to clarify.
Correct.
Yeah.
If I may add.
So
Excuse me, Steve. If I may add, Jessica has those applications specifically for temporary dining, outdoor dining. Yeah, I believe they're also online. Is that right, Jess?
Yes, they are online.
There you go.
So let me just ask a question. If someone wants to come in and say do male hair cutting, and now he wants to add female hair cutting, is that two applications? Because it's the same use in that place. It's just like sitting ducks serving booze on the outside of the rooftop. The application states rooftop dining right on it. I don't understand the confusion, I guess. I look at it differently. I look at it with more common sense. It's not two. It's not one application. It's two.
Steve, I'm going to cut you off there. That's not. We're not here for that.
Well, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying. It says two. Okay.
Steve, I'm going to mute you in a second, so please just stop for a moment. Okay? You have 7 commission members here that have voiced concerns because they don't understand what the application is. That's not the commission's fault. It's not. I think where we're coming from. So I think what we need to do. What was it, Brett? You were saying you wanted to make a motion, or do we want to entertain a motion to table this until we can get this, or we can deny this and come back with a different application? Kind of go a couple different ways.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized, John.
Yeah, I'd hate to hamstring the business in town, but I think if it's been approved without the commission's endorsement, it's up to us to deny it for that very reason and ask them to come back. We can waive if they paid any application fees. Obviously, we can waive those fees on the new application because they've already paid them. But I think we need to deny this because it's unclear what was approved being requested. What we would go forward on. So I think the safest thing to do is deny it, have them come back. We can expedite it, have them come back with 2 applications. Obviously, if one of the applications is just to cover the patio, that comes under that 7mm order. Is that correct, Keith?
Yes.
And that can be done through Jessica, and So why don't we? I would caution that we deny or recommend we deny this, and have them come back with separate applications or something a little bit more clear.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Cotrella here.
Go ahead, Patrick.
If the covering over the patio is temporary, it comes under that COVID-19 order. If it's going to be a permanent addition, which it seems to be given the fact that there's a knee wall, et cetera, then it's an application.
Yeah, that's completely correct. And they can, if we deny this, they can come back with either 2 permanent applications or they can submit the one for the temporary dining. And, but that's one of the concerns. What are we granting here?
That's what my point was, is if would they be able to come back and get the rooftop under the temporary, and that way we're able to they can move forward with this, and then in the meantime, in the duration, come back with an application to make it permanent, so that way we can act on that without tying them up in terms of getting something up temporarily. That would be my recommendation.
So what's your recommendation, Dave? To deny it, or?
My recommendation is deny this, and then Steve and Jess go back and let them know a way that they can get the temporary structure in with guidance in terms of, and get the permanent application so we can consider it.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this application.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Jess, you and we can talk about that afterwards.
I never.
All right, the last item of new business is Z20-080, 308 Oxford Road, owner Little River Associates LLC, Wally Archer. The applicant is Elaine Mercutio, New England Young at Heart. This is a permit for events. And Elaine, I'm not sure, have you joined us tonight? Elaine? Oh, okay. So I don't see here that she's here. I remember Young at Heart when they came in originally.
Hello?
Oh, hello, Elaine. Are you there?
Yes, everybody's breaking up. I don't know why.
I'm not sure. Can you hear us okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome. If you can state your name and address for the record, and if you can let us know what your plans are regarding these your application for the permits for the permit events.
Sure. So it's Elaine Mercutio, 22 Prairie Avenue in Derby, 06418. And I rent the property at 308 Oxford Road. And right now, I have not been able to do anything with my business because of I work with seniors, so I really can't have anybody at my place. So what I'm doing is proposing that we're going to do local artisan Saturdays on my property outside. I have the approval from Wally Archer, and it would be 15 vendors from 10 to 15 vendors from 10 to 2 on Saturdays with local artisans as vendors.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to ask Elaine or to discuss this a little bit?
Commissioner Sutter, Jesse Schremer.
Yes, Jesse.
Elaine, you're not going to take any of my parking spaces over there, are you?
That's what I was
No, I'm not. No, we could. You know what, Jess?
Elaine's a
No,
Elaine is a an awesome friend. She's been a great neighbor to me, and I feel for her with her business. So I think it's a good thing she's doing.
Thanks, Jess.
Dave?
And same, right back at you. We're all in the same boat, and with Cassandra's and Jesse there, I think it'll just be good for the community too, and for especially just that whole area right there.
Dave?
Chairman, Pat Cotarella here.
Actually, I think Brett was raising his hand first. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
Hey, thanks, Dave. So I had a similar question about the parking, and knowing that Jesse has a business right there, my concern around the parking, and I wanted to get Jesse's input, being a business owner. Does he have any concern around the parking?
Brett, honestly, my honest opinion, maybe a couple years ago, would be that there's a lot of stuff going on in that parking lot. As of right now, it seems that every business is suffering. And I mean, for asking me this question, man, we used to have a ton of cars, but now, you know, I'm half staffed. I'm only employing 2 guys at that location currently, and I work there part time. You know, the cars and the parking should be no problem whatsoever. I know Cassandra's, she gets a few people here and there, but the same with her. That parking lot is plenty big enough for the 3 of us, and you know, I don't think that would be a problem at all, Brett.
Okay, thank you.
And we also are able to use the property, the parking lot on the opposite side of where Jesse's and Cassandra's is. Wally said he has no problem with people parking there.
Elaine, is that the old Buddy's Fuel building? Is that the
the empty lot? He said he doesn't have any problem. So I was actually going to have the artisans park over there and walk over, and that's it, so yeah.
Anyone have anything to?
I was gonna ask a couple questions, but I was gonna let everybody else go first.
All right, and either Elaine or Jesse can answer this. This is the old Naga Talk Watch guy, right?
Yes.
That building.
Yes.
If they're parking in the adjacent parking lot, isn't there like a creek that runs between those 2 parking lots? Is there access to get across? I mean, are we going to be forced?
No, they're all connected now, John.
Yeah.
All right, so the people won't have to walk out in the street to get from one parking lot to the other?
No.
Nope.
All right. How about so 15 vendors? Do you have any estimate of how many spaces, how many people, and maybe Keith can jump in on this, if what regs apply and what does she need for parking? How many spaces?
I would not know at all about that. I'd have to study that. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
I can't give you any help on that.
How about portalets, or do they have any? Are there facilities for?
I have facilities in my building, and I'm also registered with the self-certified, for the COVID for my business. But we have a handicap bathroom that's cleaned, and there are signs even at my building now. With the COVID, and the building, and the bathrooms are cleaned and the COVID laws are followed. The vendors are given a list with their application, a list of, rules to follow as far as the COVID. And that's why and the booths will be spread out through. That property is big. The whole driveway, around the back, the property is pretty big.
Yeah, I'd be concerned
So
about
we're gonna have like a flea market there?
No, just local crafters, because again, everybody's kind of suffering. So it's a way to bring people together. And that's what I do is I do programming with seniors, crafts and different things. So I work with a lot of the different local artisans.
I still had a few questions I wanted to follow up on. Dave?
Go ahead, John.
Because I note that the date is going all the way to November 28th. So if there's snow there or anything, do we have any contingency for plowing and
No. We won't do.
Vendor set up on too.
No, we're not if it's raining or if it snowed, we would not be open. And that's why we are setting up the vendors in front of on the side and in the front, goes all the way, around the driveway, that whole back. There's a whole nother back section on the side of that garage. It's a huge section back
How
there.
far would the vendors and the patrons be from the actual roadway?
Oh, they're off the roadway, John. It would be behind her building. It would be, I would say, probably at least 25, 30 yards at least.
Is that Chuck?
Is that fireworks?
Yeah, is that fireworks? I just heard
I know.
it at my house.
All right, just stop. Okay. Somebody muted.
Hey, Dave,
Oh
I
my
got a
God.
question.
That was at my house.
Ah.
So,
Dave,
All
I
right,
got a
who
question.
had a question?
Hey, Pizza Brass.
Oh, okay, Pete, you're recognized.
What is this gonna be, like a flea market here? You setting up the vendors and everything else?
Well, local crafters, so not flea market things.
It's gonna be similar to a flea market with a large gathering. At this time, we're supposed to be distancing each other, not joining each other. I don't know, this is something else. This is even extending her business from what she's originally doing. I mean, you're talking additional traffic. You might need a cop there.
I totally disagree with that, Pete. I think, and
Jesse, you shouldn't even be in this because you got a personal conflict
okay,
right here.
Easy there.
You shouldn't
The
even
only
be.
thing I'll-
Hold on. All right, guys. Hold on.
Easy.
Pete, you have the floor. Jess, we'll come back.
I'm sorry, Dave. I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, I'm just finished. I'm just saying, we're supposed to be
No.
social distancing, and she wants to extend her
Right.
business to a flea market.
Well, it's not a flea. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're gonna have social, you're supposed to have, like I said, social distancing, but you want to create an environment where people are gonna be getting together close. There won't be 6 foot apart.
Well,
Oxford count right now is 88. 88 people got it. I got the virus, and we're trying to keep it down, and this stuff like this does not help keeping the virus down.
Well, we do have farmers markets that are opening, and they're also doing even things with the seniors, outdoor activities and exercise classes, outdoor yoga.
That kind of attitude went down south too with Texas and North Carolina and those other states, and now their virus count is up 50 to 100%.
Listen, I totally agree, and that's why I had, I even, like I said, I self-certified, I registered, we have the signs, and that's why also I don't want to really have more than 10 to 15 vendors. But right now, for me,
it's not the point of the vendors, it's the amount of people that show up to your event.
All right.
And I've been noticing, I go to
Right.
Market 32 quite often, I see a lot of people walking in without masks on. And to have that come into our town, spread this disease again, I got a problem. Jesse, you're new to this board, so
Well, all right.
And I'm
Pete.
new to
That's all I got.
this board, and I could say
I gotta say,
All right.
I mean,
Hold on one
should've
second. I just got
from begin with.
everybody,
This is amazing right now.
everybody. Let's just kind of ratchet it back a little bit. We're Pete, COVID concerns are obviously well founded. I don't want to get into an arguing, about that. And everybody is appointed or elected to this commission has the same, same right. And if somebody felt that they had a bias or something like that, they could definitely recuse themselves. And we all know what we can do. And if we feel like we can make an objective decision based upon the information that we have, then I'm confident in everybody's ability to be able to do that. If they say they can. Jess, did you have a comment or question that you wanted to ask Elaine?
No, I'm nothing at all. Thank you, Dave.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to ask Elaine? I had a few questions myself, but I didn't want to cut anybody off. Okay. So, Elaine, a couple of just quick questions from my perspective. Again, one of the commissioners reiterated that you're looking at dates that go through the end of November. My concern is more from an optimistic perspective in terms of the space that's going to be there. Let's say, in an environment that things come up, I want to, concerned about, other businesses in there and traffic and everything, because people are feeling better and things are improving and everything, and that could have some impact. So just kind of thinking about that as well too, from a longer term perspective, looking towards the end of the year. Also, I wanted to ask how you intended to market this. Were you planning on putting up signs on the road, or what your plans were for things along those lines?
No, we have, usually what happens is, the vendors will, put it out to to their clients. And then I just put it on my Young at Heart page, at Facebook page, and we share it that way. So we're not going to have signs.
Okay.
We're not putting signs up. We just get the word out through the local artisans,
Okay. And that's just basically let you know that, if you change your mind down the road, that's something you have to come back in front of us and let us know that you had changed your mind and wanted to put a signs on the road on the day of the event or something like that. We would need to know about that before you actually did it. That's all. Just more of a.
Okay. Right. Yep.
Okay. Does anybody else in the commission have any questions, or are we at a point here where we can make a decision on this?
Yeah, I'm still, concerned about the 15 vendors on that small area and how it's going to be laid out. And I think Pete's point is well taken, that we don't want to. I know that the farmers market has rules in place for social distancing. They've got, areas where they can put up the stand and, how many people can approach. I'd be a lot more comfortable with not a site map, but at least a map of where she expects to put these vendors, how we're going to keep the people adequately distanced. Right now, I'm picturing that lot and 15 vendors packed in there. I don't think is appropriate, even without the COVID, for that area and for that type of use. This concerns. This is on Saturdays. There's traffic on that road, so it's an additional increase. I think at this point, I'd like to see a little bit more information.
Elaine, I know sometimes with different types of event planning and things like that, to what John is describing is basically in terms of almost like how you would envision the layout in the parking lot to be with each of the vendors, with the the space each one, not be assigned to which one, but basically saying that there's going to be 5 vendors lined up here, and then 5 vendors lined up here, and 5 vendors lined up here. And I think that might give a little bit more context and a little more comfort to the commission, so they can see exactly how that's going to be laid out. And that's fairly common when you're looking at different conferences and events in terms of how that layout is. Is that something that you would be able to come back to the commission with and just kind of give us a more concrete picture in terms of how you plan to have this laid out? And that would probably help us in terms of getting this wrapped up for you.
I'm sorry. I could a plan of where the booths would go. I can absolutely do that. I mean,
that would
it's just like I said. It's just around, just right around my building, just the 4 and 8. But yeah, I can absolutely do that.
That would be helpful.
Okay, so just make a drawing of where the booths are going to go. Set up.
I would say, and just whatever postings you would have to remind people to how to keep people from congregating, like have.
Oh, and I have all those, and all the vendors receive a packet, and they have to have it on their table. I printed it off from the Connecticut COVID site when I certified, and the vendors have rules as well.
Very good. Okay. So if you can get that back to us, I think that would be great, and we should be able then to go from there.
Okay.
Okay. To the commission. So then, if she's going to be providing some additional information, about the layout and the regs, is I guess we would need a motion to table this until the next meeting. Be able to take a look at that.
So moved.
Excuse me,
I'm
Dave.
sorry?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'd make
I
a
didn't,
motion.
your motion to table?
Yeah, I'd move.
Okay, thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Excuse me, Dave.
Yes.
I was just looking at the temporary, there's some temporary retail, under an executive order that maybe you should look into that encourages the outdoor retail.
Does it
No,
apply to
Keith?
existing retail?
I can't hear Keith.
That only applies to existing retail, and the expansion out in the same ratio of the dining of half of the retail interior can go on the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Except for this, no.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I had a motion from John to table this till next week to be able to, or the next week to be able to look at the layout and the distancing and how it's going to be set up to kind of get an idea about the space. Was there a second to that?
I did. Second, Pizza Breast.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, Elaine, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and just getting that a little bit of extra detail so we can get this wrapped up, okay? We'll talk to you.
Yeah,
then.
sure.
Thank
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
you. So enjoy. Take care. Be safe.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next up is zoning enforcement. Steve, was there anything new that you needed to be updated with the commission, or anything new to talk about?
No, we just got a lot of permits, and the office is really busy right now. But I want to let the commission know, when I said I use common sense, I was not referring to the U7. I was referring to myself. So I don't know if that came out wrong or you took it the wrong way. I just want to make that a point. That's all.
Thank you for that, Steve. I appreciate that.
Okay, so no, we just got, the office is crazy. Pool permits are insane. I can't believe it. So
Yeah.
other than that, just the regular stuff going on in there.
That time of year.
Hello?
I don't know. Then we'll move.
Everything is so static.
Okay, so Steve, thanks for the update. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to the municipal planner section with Keith on the zoning regulations update and a possible subcommittee. So Keith, I'll turn that over to you right now.
Yes, as we had discussed before, Dave, we think it's a good idea as a staff and as between you and I, that we put together a subcommittee to start reviewing the changes to the zoning regulations and help determine the path that the commission would like to proceed. It's good to get some more eyes looking at it. I know Pat and I have looked at it, and we're almost down to the end. We have, I would say it, about a document that's about 99% done. And we would like some more eyes to look at it and get together on a semi-regular basis, maybe a monthly basis, work it over a little bit and present a plan of action to the committee based on what this group will do. So I'm asking to put together either 2 or 3 commissioners who would like to meet on maybe a bi-weekly basis at the town hall, read and study the new regulations and work to put together a final document.
So the opportunity is going to be there to provide feedback and update and edit as well. So it's not that it's done set in stone.
And I'm sure there's, I'm thinking of John Kerwin, I'm thinking of Pat, I'm thinking of Pete, maybe Brett. There's a number of you. I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but anyone who'd like to participate, we'd love to have and work with you.
Yeah, I'd very much be interested, Keith. So come in.
Excellent.
Excellent.
When did you say, as far as like times, days?
I didn't, Brett, not to interrupt you. I didn't. What I would do is work with Jessica and get whoever would like to volunteer, get your emails and put out some dates, some times. Could be in the evening, it could be during the daytime, however you guys want to do it, weekends, however you'd like to do that. So it's all up in the air, and we can actually formulate that between us.
Assuming my schedule permits with work and stuff, then I would be willing to participate.
That would be great.
And Pat, are you able to?
Oh yes, I can work something out, I'm sure.
Excellent.
So you have your John, Pat, and Brett.
Yep.
Can do that. I'm not sure if I think 3 is okay for a subcommittee because you're not going to be making any final decisions. The board, the commission itself would then have the quorum to be able to make a decision. But I think that's a healthy subset to be able to go in. So if that's good and somebody else wants to join too as well, just let us know. But I think you have your subcommittee.
Well, we'll get in touch with everyone and we'll start this. The first thing we're going to do is print out those the final drafts and pass them out to the 3 members, and then get your red pens and your highlighters and your cutting and your pasting and doing all that, and we'll get that thing started as quickly as possible for that process. And then we'll obviously we'll have a report back to the commission, and we'll have a plan of action hopefully in the near future.
Okay. And the other thing too, I think we talked about this offline, but just so everyone knows, I believe we're going to have to file an agenda and minutes and everything once you get your idea when the meetings are going to be. So, but again, that's logistics. We can straighten to get handled the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you everybody for volunteering. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Keith, did you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. I did not see any minutes, Jessica, but I think we're also trying to get caught up with some of these longer meetings. These are really tough in this online environment. So, hey, if anybody has a question regarding minutes or content, on the town website under planning and zoning are the YouTube videos of every one of our meetings from start to finish. So you can still go onto the website and see exactly what was discussed and hear everything, and basically replay the meeting. So that's available on the website right now.
I think once is enough.
I didn't know if I could say that. So.
Everyone was thinking it.
I don't think anybody wants to see me again. So,
I'm the only one who has to listen to it twice.
All right. So now we have invoices. We have 2 invoices here. We have Nafis and Young, Planning and Zoning Commission. The first one is for $663.75. This is for general engineering services for Technology Park. Site pictures, listing of issues, review and the report for Nafis and Young. So $663.75.
Motion to pay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second invoice is also Nafis and Young. This is for Pheasant Run plan review and report for $619.50.
Motion to pay.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Other business. I don't have anything on my agenda. Do we have any other business that commission deems necessary for discussion? Okay. Well, it's 9:39 p.m. and not 11 p.m. So at this time, I think we can entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Patrick, John, favor? All
Aye.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, have a good
Thanks
night.
all.
Good
Everybody
guys.
take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Night night.
Good night. Bye-bye.